And we welcome you back onto the field here in Autzen Stadium in Eugene, where Oregon State held tough with Oregon, ended up losing 52-42 here in Eugene. This is the Orange Media Network football recap. I'm Josh Warden, play-by-play voice for KBVR. To my right, Brian Rathbone, the sports editor of the Daily Barometer, and to my left, Brendan Slaughter, the color commentator and sports director with KBVR. So Oregon State winless in the Pac-12. They lose only by 10 today. Initial thoughts from what you thought, Brian, today with Oregon State in its final game of the season?
Well, for the second game in a row, all three of us were completely wrong in our score predictions. I mean, we all had this being a blowout, and it looked like it was going to be that way. Oregon scored 31 unanswered points to end the first half, but then it was a 3-point game late in the fourth quarter. Like, this was just a resilient game for Oregon State. The offense, they found a spark or something, because they had probably their best game of the season. Well, definitely their best game of the season against an Oregon team who's really starting to improve, who's been improving. And yeah, the defense was just couldn't get that last stop when it really mattered. I think a lot of it had to do with Oregon State actually scoring too quickly. They fell into what Oregon likes to do. They like to get into an up-tempo game, and I mean, they had the kick. Bolden had a kick return and then a two-play touchdown drive. That is just what Oregon wants you to do, and Oregon responded with two pretty easy touchdown drives. So that's kind of my biggest takeaway. Just a resilient game, but it was just 1 or 2 plays short of pulling off the upset.
52-42 is the final. Brennan, what were the main things you saw today in Autzen?
You know, Brian almost stole all my main things. So no, I'm just kidding, folks. No, it was a game that I think is going to springboard Oregon State to some future success. You know, they scored more than a USC team did last week against Oregon, a USC team that has got one of the better offenses in the country. They played very well, and this was their most complete game offensively this season. I thought Marcus McMaryion looked like the best an Oregon State's quarterback has looked all year, period. I think he was a complete field general today. I think it was 2 or 3 throws that Seth Collins made were his 3 best throws he's made all season, too. Seth Collins was a great runner today. They utilized him well. Dave Baldwin's offense could not be stopped today. After halftime, they made the adjustments, and they clicked. And yet again, you saw Oregon's defense is still pretty porous. You know, they're not good. They got some problems on defense. As for Oregon State, Brian brought it up. You know, they couldn't get the stop when it mattered. And bottom line, you look at it, and that's just because they're so youthful. I mean, this Oregon State defense, they're young. You know, they were tired at the end of the game. You can't really, you know, I think Oregon State traveled, 13 or 14 players under the limit today, Brian, if I'm correct, something like that. You can't expect to have a whole lot of depth, and Oregon State's injured. If this is a fully healthy Oregon State defense, maybe something happens. You know, Larry Scott's healthy, Justin Strong's healthy. Maybe they make that extra stop. Too injured, too young, but this Oregon State team's going to be, you know, a team that's going to be reckoned with in a couple of years, maybe even next year, Josh.
Oregon State, if I remember correctly, suited up 58 guys for today's game. Civil War, or any rivalry game for that matter, there's no limit on how many players you can travel to away games, but 70, 71 is normally the limit for away games, and Oregon State couldn't even get to that amount even with the healthy guys, the unlimited amount. 58 guys traveled today. A 10-point loss for the Beavers. And one final question for each of you is, this season is only less than an hour old after the Civil War has ended, but as you look to this offseason and the second year with Gary Anderson as the head coach, the things that give you hope, the things that you worry about with Oregon State, just program-wise, either put in terms of this Civil War game, but just overall, Brian?
I mean, the thing that, you know, really, you know, gives hope, I think, you know, Ryan Nall, he had a fantastic game. I mean, Central Catholic guy, he's from Portland. This game is a big deal to him. And he came out and just really ran hard, really, you know, was a real threat, also receiving the ball out of the backfield. And I think that just really helped, you know, elevate the level of the whole team, just really kind of opened up the offense a little bit. And also, I like this role that Seth Collins was, and Brendan touched on it a little bit. I think that kept Oregon on their heels. Once they got into the red zone, he was unstoppable. 4 yards out, he was going in, he was leaping, he was hurdling, he was doing everything that Seth Collins had been doing. But now they got a balanced performance from Marcus McMaryion, and I think that really helped. And you know, there's going to be some good recruits coming in. They're going to hit the recruiting trail hard. They're looking to upgrade the speed on defense, is what Gary talked about probably 10 minutes ago, is that they need to start recruiting a little more speed. And so I don't know. I think this could be a maybe 5-6 win team next year.
Interesting. A lot of injuries also for Oregon State. They go 2-10 on the season. Brendan, your main thoughts as this season has come to a close?
Again, Brian kind of touched on it. Ryan Knoll, I think right now, without question, he's your starting running back. You know, I don't think he goes back to tight end. I think he's running back for his entire career at Oregon State. Ran for over 170 yards today and just looked like a beast. I mean, I touched on it in our KBVR game. Ryan Knoll could be Oregon State's Toby Gerhart if he continues to run the way that he is, a big, bruising runner who just would not go down, and he's got speed, just like Gerhart did. Very close, you know, I mean, you can't compare everyone to everyone, but that's kind of the guy that I think of. And the fact that Royce Freeman and Ryan Knoll had similar numbers, that's huge. I mean, to be compared with a guy like Royce Freeman, who was in that, you know, huge recruiting class a couple years ago of running backs, that's pretty big. And then you look, and I like Oregon State's offense. You know, you scored today, you know, you scored 42 points, and there was a lot of things to like about that 42 points. They came out in the second half and really, they dominated. They took Oregon's defense. They made the adjustments, and that's, for the first time all season, I'm impressed with what Dave Baldwin was doing offensively. With that being said, I hope Seth Collins sticks around at Oregon State, because I think if he does, there can be a really good hybrid role for him that could include throwing, running, catching, this, that. He's an athlete, and it would be huge for Oregon State if they could keep him. And as for the quarterback situation, there's suddenly a good problem. McMarion looked really good. You got Darryl Garrettson, and you got Seth Collins, who probably had his best game of the year all around. So there's a lot of good things to like, but I think Oregon State's offense could be good. I'm thinking they might even go 7 wins next year. I think they're going to make a big leap next year. Definitely a bowl game next year for Oregon State.
Big opportunities for Oregon State. It's the most points they've scored in a game this year. 35 points was the previous high against San Jose State, but Oregon State with 42 points against Oregon tonight. They lose 52-42 in a barn burner, and it's been an interesting season thus far for Oregon State and closing out the 2015 season. Stay tuned for the barometer and KBVR, the whole Orange Media Network coverage of Oregon State men's and women's basketball, all the winter sports, and for the rest of the year in football next year as well. So for Brian Rathbone, Brendan Slaughter, Jonathan Parrish, and Logan McGinnis, I'm Josh Warden. Thanks for watching the Orange Media Network Football Recap.